Hello and welcome back. We're here today with Knikki Hernandez, and I have been waiting at least 2 or 3 months to interview this lovely lady who I met on Clubhouse. So without further ado, I'm going to read you her bio. Okay. Knikki Hernandez is a high school Spanish teacher in Central Virginia and author of books Empowering Gen Z, Practical Lessons to Take Students from Z to A++, and Inspiring Gen Z, 21 Practical Lessons to Take Students from Glimmer to Glow. Knikki has a passion for the generational differences and created a ghostwriting agency where she and her team provide writing support so that people can share the stories of each generation. Wow. So Knikki, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Coach Caroline. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Wonderful. And we have a little something in common because I was an educator for 19 years. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you on the interviews today.
I love that. When we first met and I found that out, I was like, no wonder there was a connection and a link. And it all started with your bubble post on Clubhouse, talking about books.
Yeah.
Immediate connection.
That's right. And I can see that you have a passion for the generational differences. So can you tell me how your career in education and this passion got started?
Yes, and it is an interesting story. So prior to COVID, I had noticed over the years in teaching that students were very different than the way that I grew up and previous generations had grown up. They had different values, different communication styles, different ways of processing information. And the gap just seemed to get wider and wider every year. In fact, I actually kind of dreaded, coming into the next school year because I knew that divide was just getting bigger. And so then when the lockdowns happened and then we came back to school, fast forward, we came back to school and I said, I don't know who these kids are. I really don't. I don't know how to relate to them. And not that that was my priority as a teacher. My priority is to teach. It's not to do anything that, people like to popularize and say build relationships and things like that. That's not my priority. I like people and I like kids, but I'm trying to teach you. That's what I get paid to do. And the relationship that we build will be based on that professional connection and not really anything else, unless there's just a natural affinity for something that we both enjoy or an appreciation. Maybe I have an appreciation for something, like you have a talent, a gift or something like that. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. So that's really all that there's going to be for me as far as the relationship component goes. But the teaching aspect, I felt like I wasn't getting through to them. So there was a clear conflict in the way that I was teaching and the students that were my audience, I guess you could say, at the time. So then I distinctly remember one class that had a reaction to something that I said that was very positive and motivational. And they had a very negative, very dark reaction to something, motivational and inspirational that I had said. And I came home and I spoke to my mother about this. And I said, Mom, like, what are they feeling? I don't understand this. And she said, they're conflicted. Immediately she knew. And I said, conflicted about what? It's not like I said anything controversial. I was just saying something that was very motivational and inspirational, very, very warm and fuzzy. And she said, you don't understand this generation. And I was like, clearly. But so what ended up happening is she taught me pretty much everything that I know about the generations. And she was able to teach me that in that moment, everything that I had said was contradicting everything that they had previously been taught by their parents or by social media. And that was the reason for the reaction. They were conflicted because over here they're hearing this side of the story. And then all of a sudden I came in with a very different side of the story. And that was causing some internal conflict. And once I understood that, among many other things that she taught me, I was able to take that information, transform the way that I taught, and then really understand Gen Z, and then write 2 books on it and give a ton of presentations on this material.
Mm, mm, mm. So can you tell me just in a nutshell what some of the differences are that, in the way you said that they process things?
Yes. So with Gen Zers, one of the things that I noticed was that a lot of them had low confidence. That was a pretty common thread amongst Gen Zers. And with myself being a millennial, millennials can certainly have their struggles and whatnot, but we tend to think pretty highly of ourselves. Millennials do. And we also like to have a voice. Like, I
Mm.
love coming here. We like to have a microphone. We like to have an opinion on just about everything. So that was not the way that Gen Z was. And I just was like, this is so different. And so confidence was one thing I noticed. Definitely the fear of standing out for them. For anything negative or positive, they did not want to stand out. They want to kind of all fly under the radar a little bit. And I was like, God, this is so different than my personal
Yeah,
experience. We
yeah,
all wanted to do well within a certain within our culture. We all wanted to do well in our certain areas of expertise. Like if you were an athlete or you were an academic, or what, we all wanted to do well and thrive. And we never shied away. Very
mm,
few of us ever really shied away from those things, but they did. And so that was definitely two of the biggest differences that I noticed right off the bat.
right, right, right. Interesting, interesting. Wow, I can see you really are an expert in this area. So tell me about these 2 books that you have published. Where are they on Amazon?
They are. They absolutely are. The first one that I wrote, and it's my favorite one because it's the most academic, and it was, it's my first book, so it's my baby. It felt like I was giving birth to this amazing book, and it's called Empowering Gen Z: Practical Lessons to Take Students from Z to A++. And it's definitely educator based for sure. There's a lot of talk about school and the words and the lingo and the jargon that we teachers use all the time. And then there's some great information about the way that you communicate in disciplinary situations, the way that you communicate in academic situations, how they're processing information when you relay it this way versus this way, different things like that. And it's very nuanced. It's definitely not anything that you'll find in any other education textbook that you would read. It's very personalized and tailored to teachers of Gen Z. So right now, that would be your high school teachers and your college professors, because they're starting to phase out of the education system.
Right, right, right. So I'd really like to ask you, Knikki, like this sounds like a really interesting book. And as an educator myself, I would really love to get a copy of this book. Can you tell me what it was like writing your first book and what challenges you faced, like writing and publishing it?
Yes. So it was during the lockdowns. We did not have school at the time, and everything was online. It was in March of 2020. That was when everything started. So I was at home, and I had made a vow to myself that if I did not get a book done during this whole lockdown period, like then, obviously so everything works differently for everyone. I tend to be kind of hard on myself. So I was like, if I don't get a book done, I'm a failure at life. Like, you better get a book done. So that was kind of how I approached it, just because it was very motivating to me. And I had the time. There was no excuses. Like, that's the way that I looked at it. And so, but I also understand that that's not for everyone. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time to write a book, and it has to be researched and things like that. So I totally get it. So anyway, some of the challenges that I faced was I had taken a guy named Joshua Sprague's, I had
Okay.
signed up for it, to, his 30-day book writing challenge. And he talked about in his ad, he said, you can write a nonfiction book in 30 days, get it done.
Right,
And I was like,
right.
okay, it was like $100. And I'm like, all right, this is low stakes. What do I have to lose? I enrolled in the course and wrote the book in 30 days and had it published within 45. And that
Right.
was, so step by step, he outlines the process of exactly what you need to do to
Yeah.
get your first book done. And that to me was like lifting the veil of all things book writing. It was the very first time that I understood how to actually write a book. I knew how to write, and I knew how to write academically, and I knew how to write a paper, obviously, very
Mhm.
long papers, but never a book. And he just broke it down in such simple ways that made it very easy to get my first book done very quickly.
Great, Great. And you published it on Amazon. You self-published.
Yes.
So did he take you through the whole setting up a KDP account?
I don't recall that being a part of the course. He may have mentioned it. There may have been a book or not a book, but maybe a promo or something that he had used. I'm not sure. But
Right.
I just remember the focus of the course just being like, let's get the book done. And this is how I'm going to show you how to do it. And then I'm pretty sure that I figured out the KDP process just by myself clicking buttons.
Right. Right. Because you are the publisher of your book, right?
Yes.
Right. Yes. So it must be. And is it out on ebook or hardback?
Both.
It's both. It's both.
It's not hardback, it's softback, but it is ebook version as well.
And did you have like a book launch?
Yes and no. I didn't know what I was doing. So my definition at the time of a book launch was to just say, hey, people, I wrote a book. Like that was that was my launch.
Okay. And then your second book, did you do it exactly the same way?
I didn't have to go through the course for the second book because I understood once I went through that how to put it together, and I already had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to write about. The second book it's very close to my heart because it has more to do with that day in the classroom where I was giving some kind of motivational speech to the students, because at that time they really needed something to uplift their spirits. I mean, it was not easy to teach during that time at all. And so I had this idea in the classroom that each day I would give them a motivational lesson for life. And so I think I went up to like day 48 or something like that, because we had classes not every day, but every other day. So each day they would come in and there would be a motivational life lesson on the board, and we would spend just a few minutes talking about it, and then we'd go into our regular academic lesson.
Yeah.
But over time, these lessons accumulated, and I said, I need to expand upon these. And that's going to be the idea for my second book, is I'm going to take each one of these lessons. And the funny thing is somebody actually came in my room. It wasn't a student. I think it may have been somebody who was cleaning the room or something. And they had erased everything. They erased all the lessons off my board. And I was like, oh my God. And so there was a student, thankfully, that actually appreciated the lessons that I gave them every single day. And I remembered one day he took out his phone and took a picture of the board. And so I emailed him frantically and I was like, do you by chance still have the picture of the board? And so he gave it to me, and I was so thankful. And then from then I took each lesson, and that is the chapter of each book is the lesson, and then the expanding of ideas upon it and a lot of generational content within.
Right. Wow. Thank goodness for that student, right?
Yes, he saved me. Oh, and by the way, that book is called Inspiring Gen Z 21 Practical Lessons to Take Students From Glimmer to Glow. But yes, 100% thank God for that student, because it wouldn't have got done any other way.
Right. So are you a best-selling author?
I don't think so. I've sold quite a few copies of my book, but I never really paid attention to any of those metrics. And I remember one time, I think I got into the hundreds on Amazon, like ranked 133rd out of books like this in my category or something like that. And I remember seeing that like just randomly one day, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I kept going. So no, I don't think I'm a best-selling author, but it's I never really thought about it much. I just said, I just want to publish the book.
Right. Is it something that you think about now? Would you like to be a best-selling author?
It depends. So to me, the concept of best-selling doesn't necessarily mean that you've sold a lot of books. It could mean that you just sold a lot of books in your category for a very specific amount of time. And I think that's great. And it's really exciting. And it's a great tool to use for promotional materials and say, hey guys, I've sold this many books, and maybe I've got 600 pre-orders, for the next one or something like that. Like, absolutely. Who would turn that down? I definitely would not turn that down at all. I think it would be amazing. But I have seen situations where, and I don't think this is wrong at all. It's just really not something that I would want to do. But I've seen situations where someone has paid someone to market their book, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to market their book, basically to guarantee that they're an Amazon bestselling author. And I don't think that that's bad at all, because it's going to get a lot of notoriety for your book, and it's going to bring new readers potentially to your book and to your business and all that kind of stuff. So I would never want to stop someone from doing something like that. It's just, to me, that something like that, for me personally, feels a little too pay to play. And I don't really like that. I want everything that I do to be natural and organic and just go with the flow kind of thing. That's just kind of how that I operate. Now, in the future, will that change? Maybe, because those programs cost a lot of money. So if I had some extra money to throw around and I had this book that I really wanted to promote and was super passionate about, maybe. But at least for today, that's not something, that kind of a program is not something that's on the radar for me. So what I'm learning to do right now is I'm learning how to build, and Maria Sequoy, she is the author that I'm following for this and for all this information. So definitely connect with Maria Sequoy if there's, that would definitely be one thing I would recommend to anyone who was watching this stream, is connect with her, because she's fantastic. And what I'm learning from her is not just how to be a best-selling author, but how to build a long-term sustainable business, writing business, author business. That's what I'm looking at.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. And you know that I'm in the business of helping people to become best-selling authors.
Yes.
For the purpose of releasing their own personal story for their brand. And I've done it myself, right? And so the idea is it's more about the sizzle than the steak, as my coach says. It's like, yes, it is about the book. Yes, it is about connecting with your audience and releasing your brand, but it's also about all the other things that bestseller means, right? So it's about how you can build your business, your programs, your reputation, your authority, your credibility based on the status of becoming a best-selling author, right?
Exactly.
And being authentic with your personal brand and your story and letting people know who you are. Like it's a business identity, right? It's a great boost.
I love what you're doing, because what you're doing is you're coaching people to become that person. And become that best-selling type author, and not being afraid of putting your brand and your stories out there. And I think that's absolutely amazing, because you're helping the person transform. So when I spoke about the best-selling idea, I didn't mean that. What I meant specifically is like certain programs that the author has no stake in. They don't really do anything. It's just somebody kind of behind the screens who understands the algorithms and does this, that, and the other, and whatever, and kind of and gets the book to become a bestseller, even if they've only sold 2 copies. But they become a bestseller in their category because they knew how to label the book and, and sell 5 copies, and, and maybe that was the most copies that was sold within that window of time. And so technically they're a best-selling author, but they've only sold 5 copies. I'm not interested in something like that. I would be much more interested in something that you're doing that actually builds that brand and that business. Around the concept of best-selling author and credibility and all those things.
Yeah. Thank you. And what I want to add, what I really love about my own program, Bestseller Unleashed, is that once you've gone through my program and become a best-selling author, you can then turn around and teach other people how to do it. So you can leverage what you've learned in my course to be able to create your own course, and then you have your own program and a start to your business. So that's something that I'm pretty proud of.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful, because I want the credibility, the true depth of credibility of being a best-selling author, not just the title that's hollow and empty. I want what you're offering, and that is a bona fide program. And I think the fact that you're really so willing to share that knowledge with other authors and aspiring writers and things like that is a beautiful thing, because it doesn't need to be always gate kept. It really is amazing that you're building this business and you're helping the people that are willing to invest in themselves to do that.
Oh, thanks.
I mean
it. Thanks so much. I appreciate the feedback and the support.
Of course.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you, since you've written these 2 amazing books that you've poured your knowledge into and your research into, what benefits have you felt to yourself personally, but then also to yourself professionally?
Ooh, fire question. So For me professionally, it has been an absolute game changer. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of teacher colleagues that I look up to, who I looked up to on social media, who I've actually met in person, but to me, they're like rock stars. I've seen them grow from being a teacher, which is great, and also building a business from from what they do for a living. And they've used teaching to build a platform for themselves and a bona fide business. And it could be a PLN, a personal learning network, where they're teaching other teachers how to grow and develop their talents. It could be that they have great lesson plans on Teachers Pay Teachers, and they're making thousands of dollars a month just on extra income from those lesson plans and things like that. And I'm not that person, but I admire that so much and am definitely willing to invest in those types of programs. And I remember feeling kind of envious and kind of not envious in the sense that I didn't want other people to have success, but just envious in the sense that I was like, can I do this? Like, or maybe I just can't. Maybe this is not in the cards for me. And I kept trying. And once I wrote the book, that just led, I didn't realize it at the time, but that just led to other opportunities. So when I put the book together, I was able to put other presentations together and present at all these different conferences in New York, in Delaware, in Virginia, in Georgia, and all these different places online, give 2 TEDx talks and all these other things based on these generational differences. And I had no idea that any of that was going to happen just from writing one book. I had no idea. And so professionally, this has exploded for me, and it's been an amazing experience, and the best experience that I've had thus far, and all of them have been amazing. But I went down to Georgia this past year. It was in May. It was actually just like a month ago. I went down to Georgia and I gave a presentation on the generational differences in education with artificial intelligence and how all of that was playing out. And let me just tell you, all glory to God, the room was packed to the brim of people. I mean, I had gone to other people's presentations and they were fantastic. And I loved them and I learned so much and I took all that information back. So I'm so grateful for what people have done. But I was not expecting the turnout for this presentation that I gave. I was not expecting it at all. And it turns out there was a great woman there who I met, and she said, I've got to have your presentation again. We've got to do this again. And she was from an educational institute. She was coming from an educational institution in Spain. And she actually invited me for an all expenses paid trip to Madrid this coming October to do the presentation again in Spain. And I was like, what? So yeah. Yes. Like, I know we haven't gotten to this part yet, but advice, write the book. Right?
Yeah. So are you going to go? Are you going to do this thing in October?
I have every intention of doing it. I've got my itinerary and all that kind of stuff. All I need to do is just put my professional leave in, and I won't do that until the next school year starts.
Right. Wow. What amazing benefits.
Yeah, that's professionally for sure. And personally, it's just been a game changer. I forgot to answer that question. I'm sorry. Personally, it's been a great game changer for me too, because this was a few years ago, and I had a really difficult summer. I mean, it was a brutal summer, not the summer that any teacher wants to have, because the summer, as you know, obviously is the time to recuperate. And this summer was just not it. And the following school year, not it either, because I was so burnt out. It felt like I never had a break. So personally, this information though really saved me in a lot of cases, because I was working during the summer, and the people that were working under my care or supervision, they were all Gen Zers. And if you don't know what you're doing with Gen Z, you can run into some pretty difficult challenges. And because I knew more or less what I was doing, I was still kind of figuring things out. But because I knew the basics and I had a pretty strong foundation, it's the only generation that I've ever taught. I'm not there yet as far as a teacher, that has taught like 3 generations of people, 4 generations. Some people have taught their kids and then their mom, then their their grandparents and all these people. And I'm just not there. I've only taught 1 generation. And because of that, personally, I was able to kind of keep it together for that summer and for the following school year. And it was because I relied on that knowledge like so heavily. So that was able to really help me during a really challenging time for sure.
Good. Wow. Yeah. It supported you.
Yes, it really did. It
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, just throwing this out there, you've mentioned some incredible benefits that you felt from writing these 2 books. Do you think that it would make a difference if both of your books were best-selling books?
Oh, absolutely. It would make a huge difference because these books that I've written I know that they've gone internationally. I can check the stats on Amazon. I know that they're in certain countries. One's in England, and then I saw one in another country the other day, and I was like, "Oh, that's freaking awesome!" And I got kind of excited. I was like, "Oh, that's neat,"
Yeah.
But definitely, I would say that it would greatly help to be a best-selling author because most of the books I would bet have gone to teachers that I know, teachers that have a personal relationship or some kind of connect. We have a connection, and I would say that the books have gone out to my relatively small network of people on Facebook and social media. But I know with 1,000% certainty that these books would help educators that are working with Gen Z currently. That would be your college and high school teachers mostly. It would absolutely help middle school teachers because middle school teachers are really interesting, especially at this point in time, because the whole education system actually is fascinating right now. But middle school in particular is unique because the middle school teachers, if you're teaching 6th through 8th, which is what our middle school is at my school, some middle schools are different, but if you're teaching 6th through 8, you are teaching the kids on the cusp of being Gen Z and Gen Alpha. You're not teaching pure Gen Zers anymore. You're not teaching pure Gen Alphas yet. You're teaching those who are on the cusp. And the people who are on the cusp tend to be a little bit more balanced because they can see the positives and the negatives of the generations that came before and after them. So they tend to be a little bit more balanced and selective about the qualities and characteristics that they kind of adopt as individuals. And that group, I'm preparing a presentation on what I call Gen Zalpha. It's a hybrid Gen Zers, hybrid Gen Z Alpha. So we're like into Gen Zalpha territory. And the middle school teachers would benefit greatly by understanding who Gen Z is so that they can see the characteristics and the traits of their Gen Zalpha students and do the comparison between the Gen Z, more Gen Z characteristics and more Gen Alpha characteristics so they can see what is coming up for when Gen Alpha kind of comes into play, and then they'll know what they're dealing with, and they'll be in front of the 8 ball, not behind the 8 ball, and they'll be able to set those respectful boundaries that Gen Alpha absolutely is going to have in order to be able to function in the education system. But what happens to most teachers is that they just go in one day, and it was just like me. I was a high school teacher, and I was like, I don't know what the heck is happening with these students. Like, I don't get it. And then but that's not what I want for teachers. So I continually, try to put out content that gets people to be ahead of the 8 ball so that when they go into their classrooms, they already know who their audience is. So I would highly recommend both books, and being a bestseller would be very beneficial because it would get out to those teachers a lot faster.
Yeah. Do you have plans to launch your books to becoming best-selling books?
Not currently, no. I've got 8,000 things on my plate right now, and I don't have that as a plan. But certainly it's certainly something in the
future.
purpose. Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. And I would like to ask, have you sold enough books to make like passive income?
Some passive income for sure, not enough to live off of or anything like that, but enough where I'm like, oh, I'm proud of that. That's cool. Like that was just purely passive. That was something that I did at one time, and it continues to, produce some revenue, and it could be very small. It could just be like sold one book, in a month or something like that. But every now and then you get, at least for me, I go on Amazon and I'm like, oh, 16 books sold or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
because it's such a relevant topic.
it's
It's
really
such a
exciting.
relevant topic, and people are like, I know that I would have benefited from your books when I was teaching grade 5. Like that would have been amazing
Yeah,
because it
definitely.
was rough. It was rough.
Elementary school it's a different beast because you are seeing the development in the very beginning of those generational underpinnings in the elementary school level, and they have not come fully to the forefront or fully to the surface yet because these kids have not matured. So you're just seeing the very beginning of it in elementary school. And elementary school teachers, they they have to focus more so on the parents. So where the focus is for elementary school teachers is more on that element than it is on like studying the generational shifts at that age level. Nothing wrong, obviously, with doing your observations and making some notes and seeing if those theories do develop later in
Yeah.
life, because they very well may come to fruition, these thoughts and theories that you do have, these predictions. Because I can't say, for sure what a millennial is going to do 20 years from now or what a Gen Zer is going to do 20 years from now, because things are always evolving. They're constantly changing. And that's something that I think all of us kind of have to accept as educators, that this is always evolving. And so that as teachers, when we no longer can adapt, that's when it's time to kind of regroup and rethink and reflect on what we are going to do personally and professionally, because that ability to adapt is everything.
Yeah, I hear you. You put the nail in it.
It really is like that.
For
It
sure.
really is. And I'm already like, oh God, Gen Alpha, what's gonna happen? How am I gonna have to adapt? But it's fine.
So for any aspiring authors out there, I know you've already given some advice. You said, write the book, just do it. Is there anything else you would like to tell aspiring authors out there?
Yes. So I'm going to focus more on the teachers that want to be authors.
Yes.
There is find your community of teachers that
Mm,
want to be authors.
mm,
And I'm still looking for people who are like that, just to be friends with, just to connect with, because I just met a woman. She became a part of my team at Generational Copy. So
mm,
my ghostwriting generational website is generationalcopy.com. And this woman, we met through a random LinkedIn connection. It was like a cold DM he sent me, and we just kind of started talking. He was really nice and really chill. And he introduced me to one of his friends, and she was a teacher. And so I called her one day, and I said, hey, would you be interested in joining my team and everything? And she was like, absolutely. So she currently teaches English, and she's in the process of writing fantasy novels, a whole series and everything. And she's great. She's wonderful, getting ready to publish them and everything. And so it feels great to have a teacher author be a part of my team.
yeah.
And she's going to ghostwrite books, and she's writing her
Mhm.
own. And she just wrote a blog for me on the website. I'm in the process of giving her some feedback on the blog now and all that. And it's just really cool. So I'm
Mm,
definitely available and I love working with people, but definitely find your tribe of teachers who want to be authors and support each other in that, because you can really, like, even if you don't necessarily intend to, but you can really build a business. You can have, as you mentioned, passive income. You could absolutely become a best-selling author. You could
mm,
do all these things that could elevate yourself, elevate your business. It could also elevate your school district. To have someone like that, it could elevate your students. It could help them if it's a book geared towards them.
mm.
And you can write across whatever genre you want. My book, I don't know what genre you put it in, but it's just nonfiction. And the
Right.
teacher who I'm working with, she's writing fantasy books, and other teachers I know prefer children's books. So it's totally okay to have that variety and that diversity. And we need that. We need more teacher, in my opinion. The world needs more teacher creators, teacher writers, teacher authors, teacher entrepreneurs, teacher whatever, because we really do have what it takes to transform the world in the best of ways. And as far as authors go, the woman who I'm currently working with, Maria Sequoy, to get my first fiction novel out there, which is all about education, but it's based on fiction, some true things, but not as much true things, more so my own imagination. But she said, she said something that really stood out to me. Where you're looking is where you're going. And if you're looking towards failure, then that's where you're going to go. But if you're looking towards success and all these other things, then that's where you're going. And you're naturally just you're going to kick into that mechanism that's going to take you in that direction. And so don't look backwards. Don't look at anything else. Measure your success by where you are now to your past. Don't measure your success to where you are and where you want to be, because where you want to be is going to be so far off from where you want to go that it's going to seem unattainable. So always look at yourself from a rear view mirror past perspective.
Right. Wow. Thank you, Knikki. Thank you. You've really dropped some amazing gems. I feel like I've been educated just by having this interview with you. Thank you so much for being here. And you've mentioned your website. What was it? Generationalcopy.com.
You got it.
We can also find you on LinkedIn, and I have your Facebook here too, right?
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll make sure that these links are in the captions to this video.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you, Coach Caroline, for everything that you've done. Thank you.
Yay. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to catching you again in Clubhouse sometime, maybe.
Absolutely. We'll see each other there very soon, I'm sure.